don't even know what it, here we go, pompadour head. Who was driving by with horns on their truck? You know what you look like? Satan. A Satan lover. We are here with Being Catholic Now. I just put my short out there, which I really, really did like a lot. And what did I get? A thumbs down. How do you dislike it so much when somebody's reading it and it's not, it's, how do you do that? The only way I could do it is that Catholics don't like me. That's the only way. That's the only thing I gotta figure out. There are Catholics out there who are like, shut up, you don't get to talk on behalf of Catholics ever, no matter what. And it just seems to me that, I don't know, you'd be saying it to these people. Are you? To Kerry Kennedy? No comprendo. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. We are here on day 189 of the classroom, and we are reading today about beautiful Anne Burke. Look how beautiful she is. Oh, you want to see? Okay. I always look to see if they look familiar. I do. I just do. Being surrounded by, I don't even know. In 2006, Anne Burke, born February 3rd, 1944, was appointed to the Illinois Supreme Court. Throughout her career in public service as a children's advocate and legal professional, she has provided a voice to society's most fragile citizens. For more than 2 years, serving as interim chair, Burke directed the National Review Board of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, investigating the causes and effects of the clergy abuse scandal and helping to establish guidelines and policies for effectively responding to this issue. We need to know whether or not you've really responded, because I don't see anything, but I could be wrong. I mean, I do think they're only feeding me what they want to feed me as far as information goes. As you. I was born into a Catholic family, the youngest of 4. My dad was a bartender, and I think we were a very regular Catholic family. We all went to Catholic school and were shaped by the culture and discipline of Catholic life. After graduating from Maria High School, I went to George Williams College. During the first year of college, I took a Protestant Bible history class. I'd never really read the Bible except for the Gospels in church on Sunday. I began to have lots of questions about what I was learning. So I knocked on the door of my parish priest, Father Sweeney, and asked if he could sit down and talk to me about this class. I was consumed with why I had no previous knowledge of the Bible. He said, I don't have time for you. I was so angry I actually stopped going to church for a while. It was the first time I'd ever asked anything from the church, and I was really hurt that I'd been let down by my parish priest. Oh, again and again. Meet Paul, whatever your name is over there at Oak Point. Yeah, all of your excuses, BS, be a parish priest or parish minister. I didn't really go back until I started dating Ed, the man who would become my husband. He and I have always been committed Catholics. We're regular churchgoers, always there on Sunday and holy days. Ed goes every day of the week, no matter where we are, even in China. Because my husband was in the seminary for a period of time, we've always had a lot of friends who are priests. When the Boston Globe in January 2002 began to disclose the details of the sexual abuse of minors in the Archdiocese of Boston by members of the Catholic clergy, the ensuing sex abuse crisis had a ripple effect across the nation. Day after day, the reaction of Cardinal Bernard law and the officials of the Archdiocese of Boston began to enrage the very ordinary Catholics of Boston and the United States. These issues weren't going away, and it was reaching the crisis point. Pope John Paul II summoned the cardinals of the United States to Rome, and the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, USCCB, Archbishop Wilton Gregory. They had a lot of explaining to do. They returned knowing that during the National Bishops meeting in Dallas, Texas, the following June, this crisis had to be addressed. A group from the USCCB and their media and public relations first came up with the idea for a charter that the conference might adopt at its June meeting that could be seen to safeguard children and young people throughout the United States. It was aimed at outlining in clear language a uniform policy with regard to how the bishops across the country, diocese by diocese, would handle abuse issues by the clergy. The charter was unprecedented. At a moment in which credibility was dissolving for the hierarchy around the country, the laity seemed like a pretty good first line of defense. So they appointed a lay review board that would have the muscle to enforce the charter and evaluate how dioceses around the country were implementing it. Frank Keating, then the governor of Oklahoma, was the chair. I was the vice chair, and Bob Burnett was the third member. It was June 2002, and we had our work cut out for us. We expanded the board and set up an office for child protection at the USCCB office in Washington. We set out to find the best individual for the position. As soon as we began this part of the process, I think we began to run into some resistance from the bishops. Once we'd identified Kathleen McChesney, the number 3 official in the FBI, as our top choice for the position of director of the Office of Child and Youth Protection, I think the bishops realized how seriously we were taking our responsibility, as lay people often are. We started having problems with individual cardinals and bishops, who thought we were too aggressive. We made no apology and went on with our work. Resistance in some places was almost instantaneous. The bishops weren't used to being asked questions about their effectiveness. The whole issue of the sexual abuse crisis made many of them squirm. I think it is fair to say that some of them were part of the problem when it came to cover-ups and hiding perpetrators. Nobody had ever questioned them before. They were shocked, indignant. I remember asking priests some questions, and that was the reaction I had as well. I'm sorry, but could we be a little shocked for the right thing and indignant about the right thing? But it was all part of the public record by then, and so they were pretty much against the wall because we were independent, competent, and determined. We were going to continue our work despite their resistance. And that's the whole thing right there. It was part of public record. So to sit over there and point your finger at people who are asking you questions, it simply is because you weren't prepared to answer those questions? Seriously? When this is all part of public record? You didn't expect somebody to what? Come to Boston? Go to Boston and ask you a couple questions? You didn't expect that? I don't know. Just bullshit. All of it's bullshit. I mean, I don't know. Who's telling the truth and who's lying? Seems like 99% of the people around me are lying. That's pretty much what I said. I don't know who the fascists are and the infiltrators are. I don't know. In addition to establishing the Office for Child and Youth Protection and all the responsibilities attached to that office, the review board was also charged by the charter to commission 2 studies. One was a statistical analysis relating to the gathering of accurate and pertinent information concerning the crisis. Very interesting, isn't that? So if you don't understand that, one was a statistical analysis relating to the gathering of accurate and pertinent information concerning the crisis. So did they, according to the statistical analysis, how much of this is accurate information that they collected and how much of it is bullshit? Interesting. We needed to collect concrete facts, diocese by diocese. Did I just read this? We needed to know how many victims there had been, and we needed to know the number of offenders, and we needed to know how long these instances of abuse had been going on. And so, if we don't have those numbers by now, then our statistics, our SHIT, get to work on the stats. Have they even been collecting these statistics at all? That's a great place to start. If somebody has a real interest, they'd be collecting statistics. Now, wouldn't they? In the right places. The second study was an epidemiological study examining the causes and the context that contributed to the crisis itself. What above the DNA, which is the environment, right? And everything we've got, including cancer. Cancer is not, and they know it's not genetic. They know it's environmentally based, and it causes changes in the DNA, which allows them to proclaim you need a 1-pill fix that you have to take a lifetime, but it's only 1 pill. Oh, until you have 36 in your hand. Never mind the 1 pill. Sorry, what was that? Me apologizing. Ugh. The review board felt that it was necessary for us to issue our own report based on what we uncovered. Someone asked me why the FBI was necessary. We told him they know how to get their questions answered. Uh-oh. Not a good hush hush on the answer A of the question A's. We knew that the FBI would get to the truth in every diocese. Oh, well. The bishops have a historical obsession with control, and having 12 strong professional lay people looking under the tent, you might say, gave some of them sleepless nights. I only wish the terrible scandal kept them awake. Sounds like a Protestant versus Catholic scandal to me. No different than what was going on over there in England, huh? In Ireland. We were slow to expose all the details of what we were doing. In big brush strokes, we were following the charter. But in the small detail, we would travel around the country and talk to people. Chancery staffs, bishops, victims, and perpetrators. We were never interested in just being window dressing for the bishops. Because that's a complicated mess if you've seen their dressings. Cardinal Edward Egan was offended by our insistence for independence. I also think he was intimidated by the thoughts of 50 former FBI agents doing our questioning. His animosity reached an absurd level when he publicly uninvited us from attending the Cardinal's annual gala in New York. Honestly, at times we needed things like that for laughs and to keep our sanity. When we were wrapping up our work, we decided that we wanted all the Catholics in the pews, every layperson in the church, to receive something from us on what we were doing, on what we discovered. When the bishops heard of this, they refused to allow it. So we held a press conference instead to get the word out on our findings and get it to the public. I think they could only abide looking in the mirror and seeing their own princely selves. But as we always said, it's not their church, it's not our church, it's Christ's church. Which means that really in the end, if it needs to get out, it's going to get out. I mean, we're going to keep doing our priestly duties as humans. But Christ will do the rest. God will do the rest. Frank Keating was our first review board chairman. It's no secret that he left the board very publicly just before the end of the first year. Frank just could not handle the bishop's pettiness and machinations. So he made a very public comment in the media that the bishops were like the mafia. Whatever we may have felt behind the scenes, the board just couldn't stand behind such a public gaffe. It would have paralyzed us in our future relations with the bishops. The board was very honest with Frank. It was time for him to go. Didn't we read him, Frank Keating? I could be wrong. No, we read Frank Butler. Sorry, Frank Keating. The board was very clear with me that it wanted me to take Frank's place as chair, but this is the most amazing part of the story. All we ever could get out of the bishops was that I would be the interim chair. I believe that the bishops knew they'd have a fight on their hands if I was passed over, but there was no way they were going to appoint a woman to the position of chair. So they did what they do best. Nothing. Among the more bizarre episodes of our work was something that took place when we did the interviews for the Archdiocese of Chicago. I was a part of the team that spoke to my own Archbishop Cardinal Francis George. Among the issues was one concerning bishops who transferred priests who'd been accused of abuse. We brought it up with the Cardinal. All those transfers aided in covering up many perpetrators' crimes. During our 3-hour interview, Cardinal George stated strongly to us that he had taken care of all the abuse cases. He reiterated that there was nothing to worry about in Chicago. What a total jackass. Then the very next day, I get a phone call from a reporter asking me for comments on the headline that a priest who was accused of abuse in the state of Delaware had been transferred to Chicago and was actually living in the Cardinal's residence. This was a total shock to me. I called Cardinal George and said, "We asked you about transfers, oblivious to the fact that you have this man living with you in your home. Why didn't you say anything to the board? Why would you have somebody live with you who's been accused of abuse?" Should I do the hand signal? The Cardinal went on to say that he didn't think it was necessary to tell me that type of thing. Jesus Christ, you don't have a better excuse than that, you fucking asshole. Jesus Christ. You jerk. I mean, to make light of it besides. I'm sorry. I'm making light of it, and I don't mean to. I mean, what a fucking asshole. I don't know how to say it any clearer than that. According to him, the man was doing good work for the archdiocese. According to Cardinal George, the man was doing good work for the archdiocese. I was furious at his casual attitude. The cardinal told me he received a letter from the priest's attorney saying that the priest in question hadn't been convicted of abuse. I said, "You mean there is a difference between the conviction and the plea agreement?" "Yes," he said, "he wasn't convicted." And I said, "Really? Do you know that when he entered the plea agreement, he admitted he was guilty of the conduct of which he was accused?" "Yes, he did enter into an agreement," the cardinal said, "before he was a priest." The cardinal wasn't honest with me. Perhaps he was not honest with himself. But just when you think these bishops are getting it, they turn around and do something that in any other enterprise would result in their own dismissal. at least there would be the consequences, right? I found the cardinal's lack of honesty really difficult to deal with. How do I go on to trust what he says to me? This continues to the present day. He and the brother bishops have been in denial all along. It's the culture of the administration of the Catholic Church in the United States that permitted a climate of cover-up to go on for the past 50 years. 50 years. And this was written, almost 20 years ago. Almost 20 years ago. So we're up to 70 years, motherfuckers. It's the same culture, and it's still out there today. Things have hit rock bottom in the Catholic Church, and it's going to get worse. I mean, it's not difficult to see why people are leaving the Catholic Church. Solve the problem that they have right in front of your freaking face. It's not really that difficult. This, again, is not rocket science. There's a pernicious cynicism that permits it to be repeated over and over. And to make matters worse, it's okay to lie for the good of the church. What is the answer to all of this? What can ordinary believers do? I think it is up to the laity of America to stop and say enough is enough. We want the truth, not lies. We want justice, not abuse. We want men of faith, not third-rate CEOs, to lead us to Jesus. What has occurred here with the scandal shouldn't be seen as a crisis of faith, but rather a crisis of leadership. The board went on to Washington, D.C. in anticipation of the official publication of the report that was concluded by the John Jay College of Criminal Law. This included the findings of the great investigation and the hard facts of the abuse scandal, the real numbers of priest abusers, and the real number of reported accusations for the last half century. It was national in its scope. No one had ever gathered the true numbers. Also to be included was the dollar amount that the scandal had cost the church. I was just about ready to speak before this room full of men, 64 cardinals and bishops, and 1 or 2 religious women, when one of the cardinals fires 3 questions in a row at me in a most belligerent manner. I was just furious. So I stared at him, and then I turned and stared at Bishop Gregory, who was chairing the session. I took a breath and said, "This is how we're going to proceed. I am going to give my report. I will have a conclusion. And at that time, if there are any questions, we would be happy to answer them." And I proceeded. It was stunning. I refused to be intimidated by His Eminence. And this is interesting too, because I experienced that, but this was at a Wayne State research colloquium. I put on so that it's similar in scope, but the topic was different. I was talking about doing psychological research, and that psychological research was not helping somebody who was there who was a marketing person, right? So, and it's like they acted like they were talking in code. I wasn't talking in code, but they were acting like they were talking in code. Like somehow my research was supposed to show them something as far as propaganda goes and moving towards more propagandizing, when my research is psychological research is supposed to be completely unbiased. So I was like a fish out of water, and so that's what I said. This is how it's going to go. You're not going to just shoot questions at me like that when I haven't even presented my case. And that happened actually when I was defending my thesis. Might have happened when I was defending my dissertation as well. So the stupid repeat of your sins so that you get it is getting dull. Dullis. I easily could have been intimidated by his attitude, particularly because of his office, but we had seen too much. We had heard too much. Whatever his self-image was, he was delusional if he thought we were going to buckle under their pontifical braggadocio just as we were about to announce our findings to the press. As a believer and a follower of Jesus, the experience of serving on the review board had a profound influence on my faith. I think many people find the whole topic of the clerical abuse scandal so reprehensible that they can't even talk about it. I was not particularly thrilled at the thought of delving into the deepest forensic understanding of what went on. But throughout my 2.5 years on the board, the shock of the abuse and the scandal of the crimes had just the opposite reaction in me. I think that ultimately my faith was strengthened. I came to a deeper sense of understanding of what the Lord was calling me to do. I came to rely on his presence very much in the Eucharist and in his people, those who make up his church. I came to see our involvement as a path for the church to recover. Most of all, I came to see the church as something far wider than myself and certainly far wider than the hierarchy. My days of being a passive Catholic came to an end, and everywhere I go, I encourage other Catholics to be active in the life of the church. It was interesting, at that presentation, there could have been a bishop there, and I would have shot him a look, being the director of the colloquium, allowing somebody to shoot 3 questions off like that. Like, do you have anything to say about this? Because if you don't, I'll continue on with what I have to say in order to take order. That's what I remember about that. And I also remember changing the data at the last minute for the sales call, right? It wasn't a sales call. It was about... He was arguing for sales. Like, how does this increase sales? I'm like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a psychologist, and one shouldn't have anything to do with the other. If you understand my position, I have to give you a position of a baseline, right? Of this is the way that it actually is. What you do with that, propagandizing or whatever, that's your own business. But I changed the data, and it was insistent because this was going to be the only way I was going to get this report out there as far as the data about the priests was in this kind of underhanded way, switching the data at the last minute. That's what I remember. But who those people were, I have some idea of one of them. The guy who shot the 3 questions at me. The crisis came about because no one was watching what was going on. Bishops got away with concealing crime. Bishops moved abusing priests around in an attempt to make the scandal go away. And this is no different than the contractors or than the evangelical hierarchy, however you want to say that. Because many of them, I don't know anything about sexual abuse in evangelical church, although we heard about it. Although we've more recently heard about it. So it doesn't go unnoticed because that's what the people who are the money makers are doing. They don't really give a crap about God. They know that in their minds, if God did exist, they wouldn't be around. So they prefer to sell you God doesn't exist in a package that looks like God does exist. Woo! Those are big sneezes. I might have another one on the way. They relied on the goodwill of those who were abused and their families. Nothing was ever done about the abuse until the lawsuits began to drain away huge sums of the church's resources. And the sinister statement right there is they relied on the goodwill of those who were abused and their families. Are you effing kidding me? Are you kidding me that they have twisted the faith so much so, and those people that were abused, that what they consider their get out of jail free card is their goodwill. They're not going to really stick it to those priests. Nothing was ever done about the abuse until the lawsuits began to drain away huge sums of the church's resources. Dioceses began to go bankrupt. They caught the attention of the bishops. The laity should be watchful, vigilant, and aggressive in their insistence on accountability from the bishops of their local church. And they have the right to demand real leadership from the Bishop of the United States. One of the most critical impacts of our investigation came when we traveled to the Holy See and interviewed several of the crucial cardinals. Now, I've looked that up. That expression is so unfamiliar to me. Holy, S-E-E. The definition does not, but it's like the hierarchy, but the Holy See? It's so unfamiliar to me. Almost all were courteous. They were interested in our mission and helpful by their conversations. However, one was actually nasty and had a fit merely by our presence. He refused to acknowledge that there was any problem other than that Americans could not be trusted. What a learning experience that was. We arrived at Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger's office to find that he had assembled his full team to hear us. I'd been warned in advance about his humble ways and charming ability to engage people. It was all true. The cardinal was wearing a simple black cassock, one that any parish priest might wear. He had just a simple cross and his red zacchetto on his thick white hair. He had the most dazzling blue eyes I've ever seen. He came in a listening mode. Bob Bennett spoke of our effort to identify the real damage. The cardinal was surprised to hear about some of the cases we spoke of. He seemed to not have the true picture of the impact, especially those cases where financial settlements were crippling certain dioceses. I thought, oh my God, they have been pulling the wool over his eyes too. Cardinal Ratzinger's response to us was quiet and sincere. His own virtue was apparent, and he assured us that from this meeting good things could come. We knew that at least at the very top of the chain of command, we had done what we could to whisper the truth into the ears that really counted. Following his election as Pope, we felt an enormous sense of excitement, having experienced his pastoral touch up close, having witnessed his sincerity and warmth, as well as his deep concern for the life of the church. We were grateful for his election. I'd like to think he might recall our visit and his promise to do something to ease the pain of the scandal. Okay, so this is Bishop Napoleon Benedict Arnold. Right? Okay, and so he stepped down, and isn't this just like a smoke and mirrors? Oh, how do you associate the two? Why don't you say what his Pope name was? It has been said that faith is the ability of our heart, because that's how we would know him, not by Cardinal Ratzinger. It has been said that faith is the ability of our hearts to carry us further than our eyes can see. Amen, sister. I believe that. Faith is an active virtue. Sometimes we use the wrong senses to deepen it. I'm always conscious of those times when we try to make faith an academic question, as if having the right answer all the time increases faith. Amen, sister. And that's the thing about arguments too, as if the right answer increases your marital commitment. It does not. I mean, you know what I'm saying. But I have come to, it's an intellectual pursuit. Is that the end all and be all? An intellectual pursuit? No? Oh, well, for some, then it's a money pursuit. It is the heart that pushes us out of our chair into the pain and heartache of another. That is faith. Faith is also a spiritual experience. That is what I love so much about being Catholic. It's being active and passive. It is both outgoing and incoming. The church has been shaped by poets, peasants, saints, and doers of justice, and the most headstrong martyrs. Amen, sister, again. We have a legacy from the very time of the apostles that shows us the path to faith, which moves us along the road to holiness, which pursues us when we wander away. I love letting that dimension of our faith be a part of my life. People are hungry for the faith stories of others. People want to know the Lord. They want to know how you have found him, where you have found him, and why you look for him. That is what is so exciting about being a Catholic. Amen, sister. As I say that, of course, I fear for the spiritual life of my own children. I worry that they're not searching for the Lord. In many ways, can you blame them? Often there is not much to look at in our Catholic character. I try to identify ways of faith by my own children, but my own children are often not in the mood. But I do not despair. I know that they are generous, good people. They give deeply to others. They will follow the Lord in their unique ways. They are Irish and Catholic. We have a history of survival, even under the great oppression. There is an old Irish saying, you have to do your own growing no matter how tall your grandfather was. That is good advice for families, for politics, for church, and for everyone who would come to know the Lord. And another way that it's been put is God has no grandchildren. So you have to do your own growing, right? You cannot inherit that kind of wisdom no matter how tall your grandfather was. You have to do your own growing no matter how tall your grandfather was. We need a highlighter here. There's been a few things I want to look up like that report. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thank you so much for joining me here in the classroom. Now, this is really despairing. Where did I've got my bookmark. Where'd my, what do you call those things? Magnet. Where'd my magnet bookmark go? This is disappointing. My first magnet bookmark, which is Grace, says Grace in there. I'm Little Grace. It was the perfect bookmark for me. It had a poem on it. Gone. The F. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Really beginning to understand brinkmanship. Thanks for joining me here in the classroom. I'll see you tomorrow.